Okay, well, it is 7:08, and we just want to go ahead and get started with our program. Welcome to AKATalks Autism. This is an open speak forum hosted by Gamma Kappa Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha. My name is Markia Haywood, and I am the president of Gamma Kappa Omega Chapter. So to give you a little information about our event tonight and Alpha Kappa Alpha, we just want to welcome you to the AKATalks Autism. GKO is a part of the Unapologetically Ready Central Region under the leadership and direction of our Central Region Director, Kiana W. Davis. Tonight's AKATalk Forum is an open speak forum. It is meant to uplift our local community and empower our families with resources, support, love, and understanding. It is imperative that we do life together. And as we are on this journey, we want you to know that you are not on the journey alone. Uplifting our community and empowering our family has been a part of the DNA of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated since our founding on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. on January 15, 1908. Our international president, Danette Anthony Reed, has launched 6 initiatives under her 2022 through 2026 administration. These initiatives include strengthen our sisterhood, build our economic wealth, enhance our environment, advocate for social justice, empower our families, and uplift our local community. Under these initiatives, the goal is to improve the lives of those we serve. We will work collaboratively to maximize our outreach on progressive endeavors, to be consistent in producing programming that edifies the community that we serve, as well as providing resources and developing leaders who will advance our creed of sisterhood and service. We will continue to use tools to enrich our community, provide knowledge, and help to activate your voices. Tonight's forum is an opportunity to engage, to ask questions, and to walk away with some vital information that you may not have known. So without further ado, welcome to AKATalks Autism. Now, as we begin, I would like to turn it over to Kimberly Smith Drake, the second vice president of Gamma Kappa Omega Chapter.
Thank you, President Markia, and welcome again to everyone to AKATalks Autism. And I'd like to speak to you with regard to those specific initiatives that our president spoke of for Alpha Kappa Alpha for this for our new President Danette Reed that she has set in place. Pertaining to this particular event, we are falling under uplift our local community. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority reigns supreme in its mission of service to all mankind. Given the engagement of more than 1,046 chapters across an international landscape, we have an ongoing history and reputation for making a global impact through local change. We celebrate excellence, promote a focus on service, and stimulate effective culture and showcase best practices. Local change, big impact, and global showcase. In uplifting our local community, autism touches nearly every family and every person in the community in some way. Today's AKATalk aims to make an exceptional impact in our local Carbondale community through information sharing and support, providing a platform to discuss strategies and resources as they navigate the autism journey. Also, another initiative that we touch on in this particular event is empowering our family. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority has a strong history of supporting and servicing families, where we understand a healthy family is the foundation of a healthy community. Today's AKATalk aims to fortify families within our communities by addressing and promoting the positive development of children and offering parents, caregivers, and loved ones helpful tools to redefine the possibilities and envisioned hope of life living with autism. Now that I've shared these particular initiatives with you to better explain how they connect to what we're doing tonight, I will turn it back over to our president, Markia Haywood.
Thank you. So our facilitator for this evening is Latisha Holyfield. She is a mother of 4 children, a native of East St. Louis, Illinois, a federal acquisition expert with 21 years at the USAGSA. She holds a Master's of Science in Finance from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and her son was diagnosed as a toddler with autism. 12.5 years direct autism experience as a parent of a 14-year-old son. She is familiar with low functioning to high functioning under the programming and guidance as his mother. Currently, she serves as an education advocate for parents and caregivers with children who have autism. She is dedicated to educating and empowering them to help them progress their children's lives forward. This is not something that she takes lightly, but she is a devoted mother who is here to fortify, to encourage, to uplift, and to educate, and most importantly, empower mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, all family members to truly know how to advocate for your loved one. Not just once, not just twice, but every time you interact, whether it's at the doctor's office, at the school, or anywhere else in the street that you may go. Latisha Holyfield is truly equipped to facilitate this forum on tonight. Without further ado, I turn it over to Ms. Holyfield.
All right, thank you, President Markia. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And let's get started tonight. What I did want to say before we get started with this facilitated discussion is, as my president said, I'm very dedicated and passionate about this particular topic. You know, my son, was diagnosed really early on, at 19 months. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that specifically and how I became so passionate. As she said, I basically, when he was first diagnosed, he was considered low functioning, and he's now considered high functioning. So, there's a lot that went into that, and miles to go until we sleep, right? But before we get started, I kind of want to just take a look at this video and kind of let me know what you're thinking after watching it. Is everyone able to see the video?
Coming out event we've ever seen. Now, what may be the most remarkable coming out event we've ever seen? A little girl is unable to speak a word or connect to the world around her in any way, or so everyone thought, until she turned 11 and suddenly something remarkable happened. ABC's John McKenzie has the story of a girl breaking out of her own body.
You don't know what it feels like to be me. When you can't sit still because your legs feel like they're on fire, or it feels like 100 ants are crawling up your arms.
How is it that these powerful words came out of this flailing body?
People look at me and assume I am dumb because I can't talk.
Something extraordinary happened to this 14-year-old who was written off as mentally deficient, something that may help unlock the mysteries of a baffling disorder.
What do I want? I want to be like every other kid, but I can't because I am Carly.
Born in Toronto, Canada, Carly Fleischman was 2 years old when it became clear she was not keeping up with her twin sister Tara.
When you're told your child is going to be developmentally delayed, that they might achieve the developmental level of a 6-year-old, it's like being kicked in the gut.
When Arthur Fleischman and his wife Tammy learned the diagnosis was autism, they expected the worst, that the twins were headed in different directions.
And how bad did it get for Carly those first few years? Awful. Part of her delays prevented her from walking, from sitting up.
It was clear that Carly, like most autistic children, was lost in her own world, perpetually swimming underwater.
And all the doctors would say, you're the parent. You should do as much as you feel you need to do for this kid.
The Fleischmans were on their own. Experts told them that early intervention was critical.
You use your fork.
So ever since Carly was 3, her therapy has been intensive, unrelenting.
This took about 40 to 60 hours a week of one-to-one therapy. She always had about 3 to 4 therapists working with her. And if you're not getting results with one approach, you move on and you try something else.
You didn't give up. You pushed Carly.
And when you look in Carly's eyes, you can see an innate intelligence. So we never gave up. We never gave up.
But if there was intelligence, Carly's ceaseless rocking, flailing arms, and tantrums hid any trace. Worse, she couldn't speak. Not a word.
I did not have any expectation that she would have a fluent form of communication.
Dr. Nicole Walton-Allen is a clinical psychologist who led Carly's therapy program.
Her profile was that of a child who was severely autistic and more than likely moderately mentally retarded.
And did you ever think about institutionalizing her? We had friends saying, you know, you've been plugging away, spending thousands of dollars on therapy. You're not really seeing the progress. So, of course, you start thinking about, should she be in a group home? But you decided against it. Never do it. Never do it. How can you give up your kid?
Despite thousands of hours of therapy over months and years, Carly's progress was excruciatingly slow. That is until one day 3 years ago when Carly was 11. She ran to a computer for the first time, and what happened next was a breakthrough so profound it would finally pierce Carly's silent, secret world.
And she was quite distressed, and she starts to spell H-U-R, and it was like T, hurt. And then a little bit later on, she spells H-E-L, and we kind of pushed her to finish, and she puts P, so she spells help. Afterwards, she sort of got up, went behind the couch, and she threw up.
Barbara Fenton Nash is one of Carly's longtime therapists.
So what did this tell you?
It told us that there was a lot more going on there than we knew. And to us, that was a breakthrough moment because we hadn't specifically taught her the words.
And at first, we didn't believe it. Knowing this child for 10 years and never seeing her write a thing, of course, you're going to be skeptical.
Everyone was, including her other therapists, who were now desperate to see proof. But Carly refused to type, exhibiting the same hysterical behavior that led experts to label her as mentally retarded.
She would strip off her clothes. She would go into the bathroom and she would engage in fecal smearing. So the typing was great, but no one could see it.
What was needed was some tough love. If Carly wanted something, she would have to type for it.
First type, and then you get it. Let's go.
Oh, she had to work for it. If she wanted information, if she wanted to go somewhere, she had to type by herself.
Finally, several months later, Carly began to type for others.
She started to realize that by communicating, she had power over her environment.
And what came through her finger, typing one letter at a time with fluency no one could believe, was astonishing.
I am autistic, but that's not who I am. Take time to know me before you judge me. I am cute, funny, and like to have fun.
Through her torrent of words, Carly began to unravel the mysteries behind her often wild behavior. Like banging her head,
Because if I don't, it feels like my body is going to explode. It's just like when you shake a can of Coke. If I could stop it, I would, but it's not like turning a switch off. I know what is right and wrong, but it's like I have a fight with my brain over it.
Use your words.
And Carly was not shy about expressing her desires and frustrations.
I want to be able to go to school with normal kids, but not have them getting upset or scared if I hit a table or scream. I want something that will put out the fire.
We were also horrified because for years we had spoken in front of her as if she wasn't there.
Now, for the first time, Carly was able to have conversations with her parents.
You're gonna come right back to Dad?
I want to go on a snowmobile. Can we do it? Will you go on one? I think it would be fun.
So here's your daughter, and finally you get to meet her. What was that like?
Overwhelming. Overwhelming. I stopped looking at her as a disabled person
You promised. You lie to me.
and started looking at her as a sort of sassy, mischievous teenage girl.
I want people to know that no one is telling me what to say, and I don't have a hand up my butt like a puppet.
Carly has been very clear that she sees herself as a normal child locked in a body that does things that she has no control over.
Side by side with her twin sister, Taryn, it would be easy to dismiss Carly as intellectually challenged. That is, until you ask her a question.
Carly, why do autistic kids cover their ears, flap their hands, hum, and rock?
It's a way for us to drown out all sensory input that overloads us all at once. We create output to block out input.
Carly's brain, unlike most people's, is overwhelmed by the senses of sight and sound, taste and smell.
Our brains are wired differently. We take in many sounds and conversations at once. I take over 1,000 pictures of a person's face when I look at them. That's why we have a hard time looking at people.
The one thing she can control is when and where she'll type.
Oh, this is John.
And usually she needs to be motivated.
Finish up. You're doing great.
When I tried making conversation with Carly, she would not type back.
I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Her finger hovering over the keys for hours, until I brought up my teenage son.
He wants to play football.
Oh, she's smiling. It's gonna be something funny.
Are you embarrassed?
Come on, we want to hear what you have to say.
Yes, I guess he's cute.
2 years that we've been communicating, and every time she writes something, there's a little bit of that sense of awe. The room resembled a ship's cabin. It's
Dear Dad, I love when you read to me, and I love that you believe in me. I know I'm not the easiest kid in the world. However, you are always there for me, holding my hand and picking me up. I love you.
I'll go through many sleepless nights to hear that. I'll spend every penny we have to hear that.
Was there one writing in particular that left a lump in your throat?
In this writing where she says, "You've never been in my body. I wish for one day you could be in my body."
A year after we first met Carly, she is happier, calmer, more independent.
Let's get this in the hand, Ben.
She's even writing a novel.
I think that humankind is just oblivious to things that have been around for many years.
She also has her own internet blog and Twitters regularly, answering questions from people all over North America.
I think Carly knows that she now has a voice that can help other kids. Now she looks at herself as someone who can make a mark on the world. And that's got to be life-changing.
What do you hope for Carly now?
I want her to be happy. I want her to have dreams and goals and accomplish those goals in spite of her challenges.
I think the only thing I can say is don't give up. Your inner voice will find its way out. Mine did.
Okay. All right. So that was Carly's story. I have to say that whenever I view that video, which I viewed it dozens of times, there are so many things that stand out to me about the video and about Carly's story, because my son Tristan also has a story. That video inspires me. It's helped me to just see things through a different lens. Some things that really stood out to me was the word tough love. You know, we've all heard that word before, used in various ways, but the key there is love. Tough love is still love, right? And trapped, you know, she's just a regular 16-year-old girl trapped inside a body that doesn't work, but she's there, intelligent, with emotions and wants and hopes and dreams and goals. And that always speaks to me. What I want to do now, while everybody's kind of thinking on that and how you may have a Carly in your life that you know, and when you meet one child on the spectrum, you've met one child on the spectrum, right? So Carly, for all intents and purposes, was probably considered really low functioning, right? But again, trapped inside a body that simply doesn't work did not render her valueless. And it's an uphill battle just for everyday things. So what I want to do now is just kind of get different perspectives of different family experiences of people who have autistic children in their purview every single day. So first, I'm just going to give you my perspective, you know, as a mother. This picture here is me and my son, Treston, my love. He's 14 years old. You know, he was diagnosed at 19 months old with autism. And when you are diagnosed at 19 months, really they diagnose you with, well, he was diagnosed with what's called provisional autism, which basically just means that he was too young to get an official diagnosis of autism. But, you know, he gave no eye contact. You know, he walked on his toes, no parallel play, or which children do at that age. And he actually didn't talk even in two words until he was about 5. And he didn't speak a sentence until he was about 7. And then he wasn't conversational, meaning, you know, able to respond to questions until he's about 9 years old. Now, he always had the ability to form words because I always like to share this, that even though he couldn't use words to communicate his wants and needs, Treston could read by the time he was 3. One of the things that I noticed really, really early on was that he could learn anything. You just had to intentionally teach him. So I noticed he wouldn't respond to his name when his name was called, right? And so, you know, I would go to the daycare to pick him up, and you hear all the other children, mama, mama, mama. And it used to make me sad every single day. Like kids that were younger than him, you know, from 1, 2, 3, 4. And they call out mama and talk, and my son couldn't do that, right? So I knew that was going to be a real challenge. But I noticed if I called his name Treston, you know, he wouldn't come. But if I said Juice, he'd come running. If I said candy, chips, cookies, oh, he'd come running. And so what I figured out is that his name really didn't have meaning to him. That's why he didn't respond to it. He knew that Juice was that, you know, wet, delicious, sweet liquid that, you know, I love. He knew the word cookie. Oh, that's that crunchy, sweet cookie I love. And candy, you know, all the kids love candy. So those things had meaning to him. One thing that's important to note for children on the spectrum that I think is mostly universal is a lot of times they don't learn from their environment the same way that their same age peers do. So if you think about why does a child in the USA learn to speak English and a child in Mexico learns to speak Spanish? Well, they're learning from their environment, right? You know, they're learning the meaning of the words, but it's soaking in. With children on the spectrum, a lot of times, especially when they're nonverbal, that may not be the case. It can be all types of things. Definitely disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a mother who through this journey has gained this passion and all of this knowledge. And then now I'm trying to share that passion and that knowledge to help other children the way that I've helped my son. And what did I do? I'm glad you asked. So early intervention, of course, is key. You're going to hear that like all the time. But what exactly does that mean? There's the formal part of early intervention, whereas if your state has a state-funded early intervention program, the state of Illinois does have that, where it's paid through the state, you'll get, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and all of this is like before the age of 3. Once they're 3, they're considered to have aged out, right? But what was my part of that? Well, speech therapy, occupational therapy, biomedical intervention, behavioral therapy, interactive metronome, fast forward, music therapy. Baby, we have done it all. And I would do it all over again, because you want to know why? My 14-year-old who could not respond to his name when called at 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, currently has a 3.4 GPA in a general education classroom and was recently inducted on March 1st into the National Junior Honor Society, and is slated to sit on the front row at graduation with all his ropes. Okay. And so our story is just one story, and it definitely continues. The story I like to tell, and whenever it gets difficult and hard for me, I always think about this. Have you all ever heard of or watched the program Project Runway? It's a design show. They have all of these challenges. Some of them are like by yourself, like single challenges, and other ones they'll team you up or they'll put you in a group. On one, this had to be when he was probably about 4 years old or so. I was watching Project Runway, love it. And they had this one challenge and they teamed people up. And, one lady, she was teamed up with this other lady, and one was much more meek and wasn't confrontational at all. And the other lady, she was really, really kind of just mean to her. I mean, she was mean and just almost hateful to her. And at one point, the meek young lady, she starts to cry. She's at the sewing machine and, she's getting fed up and she can't take it anymore. And the kind of mean lady says to her, I see you over there crying. Don't nobody care nothing about you crying. You can cry, but you better cry and sew. And even though it was mean, like, it always stuck with me that it paralleled so much about this journey that I've been on, that we continue to walk, that I can cry, but I better cry and sew. And with that is the perspective from me as a mother. I want you all to hear some other perspectives. So I want to introduce you to Shanita Adams. She's actually an early childhood educator. She is a mother of 3 with 1 grandson, and she's the owner operator of Adams Academy for 22 years. She has experience with autism, both as an aunt as well as an early educator, because she's been able to witness children's milestones as well as potential concerns relating to their development. And she's had to have some tough conversations. As I said earlier, my son was diagnosed at 19 months in daycare, at that time. So that daycare provider was a very key part of my entire journey. And with that, I want to open the floor up to Shanita Adams. And Shanita, I just want to hear from you, your perspective on having to have some of those, like, one, what types of things have you seen that cause you concern? And then also, how are those difficult conversations that you've had to have?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Like Latisha said, I've been a provider for almost 23 years. I have a daycare that houses 6 weeks to 12 years old, but mainly focused on the 6 weeks to 3-year-olds, which is the early intervention age, which means I spend about 11 hours a day with each child, which is about 55 hours a week, which means I spend a lot of time with these children, almost more during the week than their parents. I see them take their first steps. I see them speak their first word, crawl, things that they would do at the beginning of their learning stage. Now, it states that autism is 1 in 44 children. Kind of think that number is kind of skewed because underdiagnosed. But what I watch for is, we all know that children don't develop on the same path anyway. Some crawl before others, some walk before others. But there is a stage in which the children are more reserved to themselves, and you can kind of know, okay, I need to watch them a little bit more. I need to see what's going on. Are they participating? Are they, engaging? And as the years have went on, I'm able to watch a little bit more. And as I learn more, I research more, I take classes. Now, these classes are not necessary for my daycare, but I want to know, I want to be able to help, and I want to be able to give each child every avenue of early intervention. I've had to have some tough conversations with parents, and that is like the most difficult thing as a provider, to tell someone we may need to watch them, because we're not giving diagnosis, because we're not a professional, we're not a doctor, but we are telling them what we recognize. And everybody does not take that news to heart. They do. It's very difficult to receive information that, your child may need a little bit more attention, that we may need to make sure that when we're taking them to doctor's appointments, we're giving them valid information. When you're filling out the forms, be truthful. Be truthful with what milestones your child is reaching and moving to. So I've had parents who did not want to hear that information. And because of that, they have missed the mark of early intervention. I have one child that I'm caring for now that has been in my daycare since she was 7 weeks. She will be 3 in December. Dad knows, mom is not ready to hear it. So therefore, nothing extra is being done. And it's a tug of war between the parents, because if you're not ready to receive it, you're not ready to do anything about it. So being in a daycare, you have those parents who are, and these parents trust me. The ones that don't want to hear the information, they trust me. They trust my judgment. It is just so hard for them to hear, because no one wants to hear that, regarding their child, whether it's a learning disability, a physical disability, anything that may inhibit, your child living what they consider a normal life without any, hiccups or things of that nature.
Right.
But I just encourage parents who have their children in daycare, listen, because if you and the provider are on the same page, you both want what's best for the children. And like I said, Latisha said, I'm also an aunt of autistic, and she is just knocking down milestones. And it is just amazing what early intervention can do.
Absolutely.
And that's, just for any learning disability, autism, anything that you can provide early intervention for, I suggest that you all do it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Shamika.
welcome.
But what did I say? Crying and sewing. One thing that I always tell parents, no matter where they are on their journey, particularly when it comes to the diagnosis, you can ignore it. You can, hope it away, but no amount of not acknowledging it is going to change it if that's what it is. You know, I went through that where he was diagnosed with the autism. I'm like, no. And then they switched it to a language disorder, expressive receptive language disorder. And I was kind of like, oh, yes, that's not autism. And then, you know, it went back to autism. And it was like, at the end of the day, it was what it was. Knowing the diagnosis, accepting the diagnosis meant that I could help him. And it was honestly our daycare provider, the director, who she was born with limbs not fully developed. And when you first look at her, you see it because she only has one arm. But within 5 minutes of talking to her, she's the most dynamic person. You don't see that. It was her who told me when I didn't want him to go into special ed, you know, when he was 3 years old. It was her who told me, like, hey, I have a degree. It doesn't say special ed. She was like, you need the diagnosis so that you can get him the help. And that conversation helped me. So once again, thank you, Sorashay. Appreciate everything that you do as a early childhood educator. And with that, we're going to get another perspective. And that is a caretaker family member's perspective. We have Ms. Jakari Henderson, who's the aunt of 5-year-old Drew. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, right at the start of the pandemic. And we all know like how medical, treatments and let alone diagnosis and getting early intervention or any of that was, it was so difficult for the most minor things, let alone autism during the pandemic. She's going to speak to what it means to provide support for her sister, her nephew, her family as they navigate their family's journey with autism. She uses her skills and business savvy in a way that is meaningful and adds value where it's crucial. She advocates for Drew's educational needs in a way that means he's getting that help that he needs. We could talk all day. We'll need to schedule another session just to talk about IEPs and intervening with the school and all the specials and why you have to build your own team. But I won't go too much off on a tangent about that. Like I said, I get really passionate about this subject. So if you're interested, make sure you put it in your survey later that you are interested in attending that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jakari Henderson. And Jakari, I just want to ask you if you can just kind of speak to, as an aunt, your experience, your perspective, and just any information and advice you'd like to give to families that's in your same shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening, everyone. So I don't have any kids right now. I am a certified auntie, as I like to refer to it as, but I have been around several different children as they have continued to evolve through those different learning stages. And so I feel like early on, we kind of knew something was a little bit delayed with Drew, just being very observant. First, we thought it was his hearing, then we thought it was a couple other different things. And so it took some time to get his actual diagnosis, which occurred right before the pandemic, which was obviously very, very stressful in the regards to the whole world shuts down. So that means resources are not available. That means you are not able to go and be seen in the doctor in a normal way. And so I feel like, it's very important for family members to be supportive. My nephew is raised by my sister, who's a single parent. And so it is very stressful for all parties involved in regards to dealing sometimes with children who are on the spectrum. As you all know, they may have behavioral issues. They may be delayed in regards to being able to communicate effectively of their needs and their wants, or maybe if they're hurt or if something is wrong. And so one of the things that I have tried to do is to try to make sure I educate myself. Tish has been a great resource, available anytime I need to call her to ask questions. But I think it's very important for family members to do the research. You want to understand what autism is, how it looks, because it impacts every child different on the spectrum. And how what needs they may need, what services that they may need. And so I always try to, like I said, educate myself. I think there's a bunch of information and resources out there that you can use to help navigate not only your experiences in interacting with the child, but also, you know, giving that information to, for example, for me, my sister, because a lot of times, as Shanita stated, people are in denial. No one wants to sit and say, oh, you know, my child is different or my child has a disability. And that can really hinder the success or early intervention for the child that is really needed. And so I always tell my sister, you know, when my nephew has kind of like meltdowns or behavior issues, I always try to think about how he may be feeling in that moment, what in the environment may be, you know, causing him to have a meltdown, and to put myself in his shoes. I always remind her that, you know, your child is on the spectrum. He may not respond in a way when he's having a meltdown like another, you know, 4 or 5-year-old may respond. And so you have to make sure that you are giving that attention that is needed, giving them the respect. Be mindful of what you say and how you treat those children as they are continuing to meet those milestones, because they can hear. I mean, they're very intelligent. I mean, I don't think I have to tell them that they're very, very smart. And so be mindful of how you treat them, how you make them feel. My nephew is very, he has a lot of like sensory. So for him, we're just mindful of, you know, what works for him, you know, and making sure whatever environment he's in that he needs, you know, what he needs to be able to thrive. And then I will say what has been most challenging recently is as Drew continues to grow and obviously learn in the schooling system, being able to advocate for him in regards to his IEP needs. I just actually requested a revision for Drew's IEP. And I just had that meeting, and it was just very very rewarding to kind of hear, like I said, the give and take of the feedback that they were offering, and then being able to be an advocate, being able to be there for my sister and say, hey, like, this is what works for us when he's with us. And then, you know, maybe these are things that you can try, but also advocating where he is protected. The IEP, as you know, Tish said, we aren't going on a tangent on that, but that is the protection for the student as they are learning and kind of matriculating through school. And so it is my job and my sister's job and our family jobs to make sure that we're advocating for the needs of Drew, that he gets what he needs in the classroom to be able to thrive and to be able to be successful. So I just want to say, if you have someone, you know, someone who, you know, has a child or a family member that is on the spectrum or any disability, just be mindful of what you say, be mindful how you treat them. If you can give a helping hand to be supportive, to share resources, to share knowledge, I encourage you to do that, because it can be a lot. And as Tish said, you know, you got to sew and cry, because like there's some times where literally, like, you know, for example, my nephew had a meltdown yesterday and I had a meeting with Tish, and I literally was like, okay, you know, what's wrong, trying to figure it out. And it took us like 15 minutes. And then once my nephew was able to calm down, like he's at a point where he is able to communicate and say like, oh, I'm sorry, or be able to express himself. And so you just have to give them that room to be able to feel comfortable, and then regulate how you may be feeling. Autistic kids can normally really sense when someone is either frustrated or angry or upset at them. And sometimes that can cause the behavior to intensify. So just sometimes, like if you have to take a step, you know, have to take a step back, or, you know, remove yourself from that environment to come back where you're able to readjust, to give that child the care and the love that they need in that moment. I highly encourage that, but definitely be an advocate, educate yourselves, because that is the way that you're able to advocate. You're able to be instrumental in your child's life as they continue to, you know, navigate the challenges, because it changes. I mean, there's times where, you know, language may not be an issue for them. There's time behavior may be an issue for them. And so you always are having to readjust and pivot. But again, sew and cry. I mean, you know, this is just the cards that we're kind of dealt with, and you want to make sure, I know for me, my goal is to make sure Drew has the best quality of life that he can have. I don't want him to ever feel like he's any different, that he's lacking anything, or that he's not a part of what everybody else has. So just educate, advocate, love, and give a little extra love to them, because they definitely need it and they can feel those different things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jakari. I wrote down so many things that stood out to me from what you spoke on. One, when you talked about, no one wants to hear that their child is different, and that's very true. But what I always want to leave everyone with is that time is precious. And it's much more precious when your child is an at-risk child. They're at risk socially, academically, emotionally, mentally. They are at risk. And so every day that you're just crying and not sewing, not putting in the work, not acknowledging, is a day lost. Every day is an opportunity to help them. One thing with the school system, please don't assume that the schools know what to do. In my experience, they don't. And even if they think they know what to do, or they've been trained, or they've done it at their professional development day, they don't know your child, and they don't know how your child learns and how to interact with your child. And I have observed along this journey many parents that also don't know that about their child. But my question is always, well, if you don't know and you love them, like, why would they? Why would they know how your child learns best or how to deal with behaviors if you can't articulate or adequately explain it? So that was one of my takeaways. The IEP meeting, like I said, we could talk on and on about that. We won't. But a key there is not only is it the child's protection, but that IEP meeting is very important. I walk into an IEP meeting like it's my meeting, because it is. I've requested a copy of the draft IEP at least 10 days prior. Why? Because I need to go through every inch of it, highlighting, making notes, making sure that I add in information that I needed. You can say, oh, little Johnny is cute. Oh, little Johnny is nice. How does little Johnny learn? What are little Johnny's challenges? What are the goals that you have for little Johnny this school year within the next 3 months? And you can go back to the drawing board whenever you want to adjust it. The I in IEP means independent. It's an independent education plan that should be tailored to your child. And guess what most schools do? They take another plan and they slap your child's name on the top of it. And if you don't read it to know that it doesn't apply to your child, or it's not going to help your child, that plan is not worth anything. It's not even worth the paper that is written on. And then lastly, from your conversation, your statements, I wrote down that negative is never the way. Your first inclination is to maybe be emotional and go, "Nan, why did you do this? Why did you do that?" All you're doing is adding fuel onto the fire. And with that, we have talked enough. We've been dropping gems, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. This is an open speak forum, so we really want to give anyone who would like to share the floor, the opportunity to just speak your truth. And please unmute yourself. If you need to, just raise your hand, but we'll see how many people want to speak. Please give your name, your connection to autism, and just share your thoughts. I see Candace Talley. I see your hand is raised. Go ahead, Candace.
Good evening, ladies. And once again, thank you for bringing this topic. My connection to autism is I'm a former pediatric nurse, and I've also been an educator. One thing I was saying in the comments is quickest way to getting cussed out by Black folks, mention something about their child.
Yeah, well.
That is serious. And it's not that we're picking on you.
Mhm.
We see something. And I like the fact that the early educator said that, hey, we're noticing some things that your child is missing cues. If a stranger can see it, then hopefully you can see it. And it's not a beat up on your kid. It's just what we're knowing. And please send it to your pediatrician for your next well child visit, because I believe early intervention is key. And also with those IEPs, especially dealing with Black and brown children, you have to advocate for your child, because no one else in the school is going to advocate for your child like you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, I want to talk about resources. What do you do for individuals who live in a rural area? For example, Carbondale's going to run differently than Chicago, than Springfield, St. Louis, or even East St. Louis. So what do you do? How do you talk to the families, particularly Black and brown families who live in these underserved rural or even inner city areas? How do you make sure that they have the tools that they need to make sure that their children and their families are successful?
Yes, and I can speak to that definitely. One, again, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a mother with some experience. That being said, Jakari is actually in Carbondale. She lives in Carbondale. That's where Drew is. And we've had many meetings, me and her, conversations, video conferences. I've even met with her whole family. I mean, it was just a beautiful, all these generations of Black women coming together for this child. And we were able to talk about things. No one can make Carbondale have more resources than it has. But one thing that the pandemic did leave it positively, there are a lot of resources now that you can gain just virtually. That being said, too, there's a lot of resources that do exist and the parents don't know to even look for them. For instance, when you talk about applied behavioral analysis, Carbondale has ABA. But a lot of parents, especially brown and Black children, don't even know what it is. They've never even heard of it. If you're relying solely on the pediatrician to tell you, a lot of times, like I wanted my child to recover from autism. A lot of people don't believe that's even possible. So they're not going to tell you about those resources. So I would say, one, just giving them the information and educating them on what questions to ask, what resources to look for, and just providing the information of researching what's in your local area and what may be virtual. That's what I would say to those parents who are in these rural areas. Thank you for that question. I think
in there too, the university is located here at SIU and they also have a lot of resources. So definitely connect with a lot of the institutions because obviously with early education and programs that are offered at schools, they have resources as well.
Okay, thank you for adding that, Jakari. Sarah, you have your hand raised.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you all for providing the space just to have a conversation about this topic because it's so important. My husband and I, we do have an autistic son. From our experience, he has a twin, so it was easy to kind of see some delays early on. But one thing that I did want to kind of touch on is neurodiversity and how we are all neurodiverse. Everybody learns at different paces. Everybody suffers from, maybe different abilities. And I think for me as a mom of an autistic kid, now when we say we have an autistic kid, that's kind of like outing our kid, right? So if you might see my son, you might not know what he suffered from. So that's something kind of different, but I want to out myself in saying that I'm also neurodiverse because I suffer from depression, anxiety, and all of these other things. So when he had a diagnosis, kind of similar to Jakari's in the middle of the pandemic, it caused me to go into a depression for almost a year, where it was like anytime the word autism, you just break down, and it's almost somebody mentioned it in the comments where it's a grieving process. Every time you're at a new specialist, you don't understand what they're saying. So it is definitely a journey to go on. But as you guys are thinking about, you might have a friend that has a kid that oh, that baby's different. but you know, the mom may not be able to hear it, or the dad may not be able to hear it, but maybe stepping back and honestly looking, maybe look at their neurodiversity, you know, or just maybe helping a parent to say, hey, how are you coping? Are you okay? Because my therapist actually was the one that led me to more resources for my son. So that's just one thing I wanted to just share. It's just everybody is neurodiverse. Yeah, but thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And then I think Joran, I think you had your hand raised next. You're on mute. You're still on mute. Are you double muted? Almost. Do it again. All right. While we're waiting on Joran to unmute, I think Jillian, you have your hand raised.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
guys so much for having this event. This is one that immediately like just spoke to my heart. I am a proud autistic aunt. My nephew is autistic, and what Shanita said, it really spoke to me because my nephew is now 16. He was diagnosed when he was about 3 years old. But it was one of those situations where I went to my sister and I said to her, I think something's happening, maybe get him checked. And it was awful, just awful. I mean, the pushback that I got was almost aggressive, violent almost at times. And it wasn't until we learned that he had gotten burned and with an iron and didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
We had no knowledge about how the different sensitivities happen, and you know, he didn't speak until later. So just a lot of what like Jakari said and what Shanita said, just it really spoke to me because these were things that we were dealing with that we had no knowledge about. So now coming full circle, just being able to get him, advocate for him in the school system. We've been to where he was straight-jacket, literally strapped in a chair going to school, to now being high functioning in school, honor roll, advocating for himself, riding the bus by himself. So that early intervention and just being able to recognize things, learn about the resources that are available in the community. My husband's also a special education teacher and works with autistic kids all day. So it's something that really speaks to my heart. I try to be involved in the community, Autism Speaks, and I'm a 911 dispatcher now. So we just recently started a program in Aurora here that where we train our call takers to take calls from family members or individuals who are on the spectrum and how to handle those so that their interaction with officers goes a little bit smoother. So thank you so much for this platform. It's just been amazing to hear everyone's stories and just to share the knowledge and share all the different perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Jillian. That was some excellent information. What I would say is, first of all, I applaud you for being bold and strong and loving your family enough, your nephew enough, your sister enough to say something. You know, too many times family members actually don't say anything. And maybe they do, maybe they don't, but you know how like you can put something out there and it may not be received, but you know you put it out there, right? And sometimes that's the best that you can do. You can only really do what you can, but you want to make sure you're doing that. And it sounds like you're doing that. So I definitely, as a mother of an autistic child, I thank you. I thank you for that. Okay, let's go to Nadia. I think you had your hand raised next.
Yes, I did. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I am similar to some of the other ladies. I am a mother of a son who is on the autism spectrum. My son Josiah is 3 years old. He was diagnosed right before his second birthday. My journey with autism, however, does not start with him. It actually starts with a friend of mine. Her son was diagnosed with autism at about 7 years old, but we started to notice things in him when he was maybe about 2 or 3. I remember my first initial reaction to him was that he was just a bad kid and he was always in trouble. The idea of autism never really, came into my thought process at that time. Even with my own son, my first thought was not something wrong. It was actually my mother-in-law who experienced because my son did not respond when we called his name. So our initial reaction was just like, a lot of the other ladies have said, was there's nothing wrong with him. So my initial reasoning for getting him tested was to prove her wrong. By me having him right before the start of the pandemic, by the time he was actually able to be diagnosed, I had started doing research on it. So I kind of knew deep down in my heart that my son had it. Even after he was officially diagnosed the first time, I still kind of argued it. I ended up getting a second diagnosis. And it was my mother who, because I was pushing for a third, it was my mother who then said to me, Nadia, if you get this third diagnosis, does it change the first two? And I was like, well, I guess not. Okay. Since then, however, we have made drastic strides when it came to Josiah. Even prior to the kind of the situation with me not fully accepting the diagnosis, he was already in intervention. He's obviously aged out now. He's in school part of the day, and my husband and I are very diligent in working with him on certain things. For example, we read with him every day. Josiah is really quick to go grab a book and bring it to you, and he'll kind of point to the words and to the letters because he's trying to figure it out. One of the things that I really want to stress is that autistic children are intelligent. We like to think that because, they are special or they are quote unquote slow, that the intelligence is not there. There are times when I just sit back and kind of watch him, and I am thoroughly impressed at how his thought process works, even at 3 years old. Since his diagnosis as well, I have also advocated for other mothers and assisting them in getting diagnosis for their children. There was one girl in particular, her son, I had kind of noticed on social media. She and I were kind of social media friends, and I just reached out to her and asked her whether or not she had actually considered some things. And her son just started school a couple of weeks ago after he received his diagnosis. So I know that it's hard, especially in our community, to speak up because, like, someone earlier said, the worst thing that you can do is tell a Black person that something's wrong with their child. They're ready to fight. Right. Okay. People are not always receptive to the idea of there being something wrong. And I too was not receptive initially. So I think that's just the biggest takeaway. If you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
They may be upset with you, but it's better for you to say something and actually get that diagnosis and to have an answer.
Absolutely.
To actually have an answer. And speaking of the answer, there is, I'm sure, not sure where everyone is from. I live in Bensenville, but I'm from Maywood, Illinois. And we have, there's a lady here named Deborah Vines. She's like an autism guru here. She was actually nominated a few weeks ago for CNN Heroes for her work with her company, The Answer Incorporated. So I just use that as an example to say that there are resources. It takes some work to find them, but there really are resources to be able to assist our babies and being able to thrive.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Nadia. I'm going to see if Joran is ready. And after that, we'll go to Idea, and then Alicia, and we'll move on to because we could talk about this topic forever, right, guys? But we don't have all night. So we're going to go to Joran. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Joran. Go ahead.
I was double muted. I want to also say hi, and that I do have a son. He is 6 years old. He's on the spectrum. And I'll kind of sum it up really quickly. We did early intervention. We did the diagnosis at about the age of 3. Once we got the diagnosis, again, I was in denial, like many other mothers and family members. Then we also noticed he liked to stim a lot. He liked sticks. So that was kind of like a red flag. And one thing I want to just talk about is also with me having to accept the diagnosis, it was also other people and their perception. So he stims a lot and he likes hangers and sticks, and it was other people's outside opinions that actually, when we would go to the store and that affected me. So that was really difficult. It's like I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. But also on top of like resources like your IEP and how important those are, I also want to mention things like going to the doctor and dental care and those self-care things, that getting hair done, how those can be difficult, and also finding people who can accommodate two children on the spectrum can be very difficult. At times I didn't know if I wanted to cut his hair because it was difficult finding a barber who would be willing to just be patient, and then also growing his hair out. Should I do locks? Should we do braids? What would be the best way to approach this? And I just kind of want to just throw those things out there, and if anyone has answers or anything, but that's just something that I also feel like needs to be out there, more resources in that aspect of just dental and hair, and more people advocating in that way.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. One thing that popped up in my mind when you were talking about the haircuts is Tristan was the same way, and I had those same questions. But at 14 years old, he gladly goes and sits downstairs, and my husband cuts his hair without an issue. Temple Grandin, which you all may know is one of the most famous outspoken autistic people. And she tells the story about how she used to hate putting on her Sunday dress and how it used to bother her skin, and she tried to rip it off and always try to take that dress off. And she kind of talked about how if she didn't only have to put it on Sunday, maybe she would have gotten used to it. And so that's kind of what happened with the haircuts. Like the more his body was able to kind of get used to the sensations, his body and his mind got trained to be able to get his haircuts, so he just wears a low fade. So thank you for that. I'll go to Idia now.
You pronounced my name right.
I guess hooked on phonics worked for me.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Idia Egoin, and I don't have a direct connection to autism, but I think that my connection is I'm a human. And so for me, listening to you all's stories, especially about how most people spoke about how their children, their family members got early diagnoses, was really, really good for me to hear, because as I was kind of preparing for it tonight and doing some research and looking up stuff, I'm a lawyer, it's just kind of what I do. I saw all of these articles about how Black and brown children are less likely to get diagnosed than their white counterparts. And so meaning they're not getting the proper care, they're not getting the treatment, like how important early intervention is, which is what you all have said. So it was inspiring for me to hear that most people during this presentation got fairly early diagnosis, and also just shows me how important and crucial it is to be an advocate. While I don't have any children and I don't have a direct connection to autism, I think the advice you all gave was extremely helpful. I am a caregiver for my father who's in a nursing home, and I know about advocating and asking about second opinions and, making sure that I'm prepared for these care plan nurses. So I think that like the advice that you all give, it just goes for being an advocate for your family members, especially when it comes to health related things, and not, letting that white coat syndrome and thinking that because a doctor said it, it's law. There's only, one person who says it's law in my book. So I just really appreciate you all for sharing this, and it just inspires me to keep advocating for my dad. And if and when I do have children, and I see the signs, I feel more empowered to cry and soothe. And so, as you said, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Idia. Much appreciated. Alicia Carlisle.
Yes, you got it right. Thank you so much. Let me see if this camera worked right. I couldn't find a decent place at my house today to camera up. But I'm just so blessed to be able to join you all tonight. I came a little late, but that I did hear was very impactful. How I'm connected to autism is I have a nephew, my brother's son. He's the only boy in the family, and he was born with autism. And it's been a real challenge, just knowing that, you know, my brother has this child now. He's a man. He's let's see, my daughter's 33, so he's 34. And to this date, it's still a very sensitive subject in the family. They were very hurt and disappointed that their first child would be on the spectrum, and it took a long time before they actually said that that's what it was. But we pretty much knew that that's what was going on. And like I said, even to this day, I don't think that I could have a conversation with my brother about it. He said it to us that that's what it was, because we kind of, you know, we're going for, is it this? Is it that? You know, and they were very reluctant to co-sign even that there was anything wrong for many, many years. And so, but hearing what you all are saying and how you've interacted with family is very encouraging. And if there's anything that you can share for someone such as myself that's still, I want to be connected. One day something could happen, and all my nephew will have, and his sister also has autism too. They will only have us. There's not a big family on either side. And so as we get older, you know, it's more pressing. So if there's any suggestions or resources, I really appreciate if you could share.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Alicia. And what I would say as a mother is, you know, make sure you have your own personal relationship, you know, with each one of them. My sister, whose name is also Alicia, she has her own personal relationship with Tristan, and he trusts her. And that's something that you foster by doing. And that way they can, you know, if anything were to happen, it's not like, oh, here are you're not a stranger, but I'm also not comfortable with you. So the more time you can spend just with them, getting to know them and what they like, and what are their triggers, what are their stems, the better off it'll be. Because what we do know is as parents, our job, no matter whether your child is neurodiverse, autistic, is to prepare your children for a world without you in it. Because that's the goal, right? Is that one day you're going to leave this earth and they'll be here, and you want them to be independent and thrive and also have that support system. That being said, I have a couple of other hands raised. It is 8:21. This is supposed to go until only 8:30. So I'm going to ask Jakari and Alicia, I will give you 30 seconds before we have to move on to the next. I don't want to leave anyone out because I know this is an invigorating topic. Jakari, 30 seconds. What say you?
I just wanted to say it's important to look at the statistics, because a lot of our boys are being diagnosed with autism. So I wanted to share that. Joran, what's his name? He's a DJ. Jermaine is one who cuts Drew's hair, and he has done a phenomenal job with him and being patient as he gets his hair cut. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, as a local resource.
Nice. Can you put that in the chat window if you haven't already?
Yep,
so that people can copy that. All right. Thank you, Jakari. Alicia Williams, 30 seconds. Oh, did we lose Alicia?
No, I was trying to figure out how to get on mute, off mute. Hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Williams. I am Latisha's sister and the aunt of Tristan, a proud auntie. I just wanted to add, and I know I only got 30 seconds, that I love what Joran had mentioned about, feeling, judgment from other people, even when you're out in public. If anybody has learned anything tonight or has learned anything new, I should say, tonight, please share it with your family. Please share it with anybody that you can. And I'm not going to be emotional, but please share it because they're surrounded by their family. And a lot of African-American communities can be closed-minded. And just if you have learned anything new, please share it with anybody that's willing to listen and willing to advocate for them and willing to make them feel comfortable and, get to know them and make them, have a safe place within them because their family is first and foremost. And it's a lot of people I know that are closed-minded. And so it just really touched my heart when she did mention that because I'm gonna leave it at that. Please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And I want to touch on that just really quickly. I'll give myself 20 seconds just to say about judgment from other people. What I figured out was that it started with me. It started with me not caring, and that I knew exactly what was going on. And if I don't accept him, how will he ever accept himself? Right? So it starts with us and not really caring about the outside, because I don't care what a stranger thinks. At the end of the day, I need to make sure I'm doing what I need to do to give my child the help that he needs. If he needs to stem, baby, he's just gonna stem and you're just gonna be uncomfortable, and that's the way this is gonna be. But okay, Sora Shay, you are our final one on this.
Okay, really quick. Just speaking to the lady who was saying about her auntie and about being the aunt and her brother is kind of standoffish about the subject. Push, because what it is that they're looking at it on an outside point of view. They don't want people in their space that will be judgmental. But if you show a genuine interest in what the child has going on, they'll begin to open up. I remember asking Latisha about some resources about ABA. And I went to my sister-in-law and I said, hey, have you thought about this? And she said, well, how did you know about that? I said, well, I was doing some research. And she was like, well, was it for school? What was it for work? I said, no, it's for my niece. And that opened up a whole world of her letting me in, because now I am on the same page as her. And she knows that I only want the best for my niece. I'm not coming to be judgmental. I'm coming to learn, love, and, leave a life of legacy with her. So just push, so that he can open up, so that you can be involved, because they want the support. They just don't want the judgment around it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sora Shay. We have a photo. I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Smith Drake, who's going to talk about our upcoming events.
Thank you so much, Tish. And I just want to commend everyone on your courage. Being able to hear your stories has been extremely impactful. And it is definitely going to shape my thoughts and how it is that I move forward with my family and friends, loved ones who have children who are autistic. Thank you all so much. Now, this was a wonderful, wonderful event. And the things that we do in Gamma Kappa Omega, we do them for the benefit of the community. And we want to uplift our community, as I said earlier, and we want to engage and empower our families and our community. And the ways that we do that, it actually takes money to do those things. We have to raise funds. The doors of the church are open, y'all. So we are hosting a fundraiser beginning May the 4th through the 8th, where I'm sure you guys have seen it before, where you're able to purchase some of that yummy, delicious, sumptuous popcorn. So we're going to have the Thelma Gibbs Walker pop-up shop from May the 4th through the 8th. And we are also going to have the Thelma Gibbs Walker virtual fundraiser, where if you don't want to buy the popcorn, you are able to make individual donations. So please continue to watch our social media pages for details when that goes live. Also on May 4th, we will have our scholarship recipients will receive their presentations and awards at Carbondale Community High School. Also, we are looking forward to Wellness Wednesdays, where we will be hosting Pink Table Talk. When Pink Turns Blue, coping with depression, PTSD, and trauma. That date is to be determined. So again, keep an eye out on our social media, and we will be posting information to let you know when we will be having that virtual event as well. And then on May the 20th, we're going to get moving and we're going to participate in the Relay for Life of Jackson County and Murfreesboro, the 5K walk run to benefit the American Cancer Society. You can donate, sponsor Gamma Kappa Omega by using this link here. I don't know.
I put it in the chat window.
Okay, so it's in the chat. Yeah, it's right there at the chat where it says secure AC events. That's the link to support us in the 5K walk run on May the 20th. Please be sure to follow us on social media at Facebook at Gamma Kappa Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc. Instagram at AKA1908 GKO, or email us at AKA1908GKO@gmail.com. Before you leave, please complete this survey for today's program. It is in the chat box, and you can just click on it and it'll take you directly to the survey. We want to know and receive your feedback. It's very important for us in our continued programming. This particular topic is one that is very dear to the hearts of many. So you may see it come again. There may be a part 2. We don't know. But we definitely want to receive your feedback so that we can understand what it is that you're interested in participating in and learning about. Again, tell us what you think. Your voice matters.
Thank you so much. Please be sure to do that survey. And thank you all so much. And Markia, our president, she's gonna lead us out.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank our forum speakers, especially Latisha, for spearheading this event, for taking it by the reins and really opening it up to our community. Thank you to Jakari Henderson, Shanita Adams, and all who have shared their stories on tonight. You have made an impact, whether you realize it or not. I want to encourage you as you leave out, know, one, that you are not alone. You have a community that is willing to support you. 2, continue to educate yourselves. Continue to advocate for your loved one. Continue to support a loved one. And then know that you are equipped, and continue to come with us to get even further equipped. One thing that I truly believe is that God provides strength when it's most needed. And sometimes we don't know that you need the help until you say it. So you also have to advocate for yourself. We've had individuals to share what their emotional needs are. And so we want to make sure that we're there for you when it comes to those endeavors. So please fill out the survey. Know to operate in grace and love in all things. And may God continue to strengthen you, give you the wisdom that you need, give you the strength that you need moment by moment and day by day. And we hope to see you at our next event. We hope that you will participate in our Thelma Goods pop-up shop. And once again, Thank you, thank you, thank you to the members of Gamma Kappa Omega Chapter for all of the hard work that you do. Thank you all for participating in the events that we hold, and we can hope to continue to provide you with events that not only empower you, but they educate and equip you. So until next time, we just pray that you are blessed. Those who know me know that I'll go into a whole church service. So we're going to leave that right there. And we hope to see you all soon. Be blessed.
All right.
And thank you once again.
Thank you so much, everyone.